Your nets are full again. That should feel good. Sunrise paints the harbour in soft pastels, the kind of light that makes you think about coffee and dry socks. Your boat cuts through water so still it could be glass, engines humming their reliable tune. Cast the net, haul it back, salt the catch. Mackerel, cod, a few squid if you're lucky. Life of a humble fisherman making ends meet. The mayor waves from the dock like your old friends. The fishmonger counts coins with steady hands, asks about your day with genuine interest. Even got a debt to pay off. Nothing crushing, just the cost of getting back on your feet after that unfortunate business with your last boat. Proper maritime capitalism. Honest work for honest pay. This is Dredge. At least, that's what it wants you to think. Pull up alongside Animal Crossing at the cozy game dock. Stardew Valley's there too, engines cooling in the morning sun. All that cottagecore aesthetic, the fantasy of simple living, of small town warmth, where everyone knows your name and the biggest worry is whether you remembered to water the turnips. Games that let you believe in a world where work is meaningful, neighbors are kind, and tomorrow will just be like today, only a little bit better. But the sea has other plans. It starts with the fog, not the gentle mist that rolls through farming sims like an aesthetic choice. This fog seems wrong, presses against your boat like it's hungry. Your lantern, the same one that felt so nautical and charming an hour ago, suddenly can't cut through more than a few feet of grey. Shapes flicker at the edge of light, shadows that don't match anything you've seen above water. Then you dredge up the first one. Not dinner, an aberration. A crab that counted wrong when growing its legs. A fish that split open into geometry that shouldn't fit inside skin. Something that should have stayed buried in the silt where light doesn't reach, where the pressure keeps impossible things pressed flat. You stare at it writhing in your net. It stares back with too many eyes. The fishmonger still smiles when you bring it to him, still counts coins, still doesn't ask questions. That's when you realize the town wasn't welcoming you home. It was welcoming you back. Dredge is a fishing game. That sentence should tell you everything you need to know, but it doesn't. Because Dredge is the kind of fishing game where you spend the first hour thinking about upgrading to a better rod, and the last hour wondering why you're delivering cursed relics to a man who might be yourself. The game opens with you washing ashore at Greater Marrow, a small archipelago that serves as the game's first tutorial area. Your boat is gone, claimed by rough seas and circumstances you can't quite remember. The mayor finds you on his beach, offers you his hand and a warm smile. Lucky timing, lucky he's the generous type, lucky he happens to have a spare fishing vessel just sitting around, waiting for someone exactly like you. But this is charity with terms attached. You now have a modest debt to work off. Nothing crushing, just enough to keep you grateful, keep you working, keep you from asking too many questions about why a stranger would loan you a boat without knowing your name. So you fish. Point your boat towards disturbed water. Cast your rod, play the minigame when something bites. Your cargo hold has limited space, so you make choices about what to keep and what to toss back. Basic resource management disguised as a maritime simulation. The fishmonger at the dock buys whatever you bring him. Professional demeanor, fair prices, no questions asked. The last part becomes important later when you realize he really means no questions. Fish with too many eyes, crabs with extra legs, squid that keep writhing hours after you've pulled them from the water. He weighs them, pays premium prices, and doesn't even blink. But it's the panic system that shows you what kind of game this really is. Stay out after dark and that little eye icon in the top of your screen starts to open. Your character's sanity begins to fray in real time. Phantom tentacles appear in your path. Ghost ships flicker at the horizon. Shadows circle your boat like they're deciding if you're worth the effort. But night fishing pays better. The rare catches come out when it's dark. Those valuable aberrations, the fish that sell for serious money, only bite after the sun goes down. So you stay out longer, watch that eye open wider, track your sanity deteriorating in measurable increments. The first aberration comes without warning. You're fishing normal spots when something wrong takes the bait. You haul it back to the fishmonger. Watch him slice it open. Watch him pull out something that shouldn't be inside a fish. A handkerchief. Silk by the looks of it. Expensive, and it seems personal. When you reach your boat, there's a face at your window. Mostly in shadow, but the voice is clear enough. He knows what you brought to the fishmonger. He needs to inspect it, but not here. Meet him at Blackstone Isle instead. He has a business proposition. You go because what else are you going to do? Normal fishing feels suddenly small compared to whatever this stranger is offering. The collector meets you at Blackstone Isle, a small island off of Greater Marrow, with an offer. Professional dredging equipment in exchange for finding 5 specific relics. Artifacts of historical significance, he says. The first is a key. Large, ornate. Should be somewhere in the waters around the Marrows. You agree because the equipment is worth more than your boat. Because something about this man makes saying no feel impossible. The dredging equipment changes everything. Now you're excavating the seafloor, pulling up debris from shipwrecks and settlements that went under decades ago. Personal effects, wedding rings, pocket watches, tools that belonged to people who had names and families. You find the key behind Greater Marrow, but only at night. A red light pulsing beneath the waves like a submerged beacon. Your first real venture into the dark. The red light draws you deeper than you've ever fished. Past safety, into water that feels thick and wrong. Your paranoia meter starts to crack open. Phantom shapes flicker at the edge of your vision. Something large moves beneath your boat. The key comes up, brass tarnished black, heavier than it should be, warm to the touch, despite coming from the cold deep. The red light vanishes the moment you haul it aboard. Getting back becomes a race against your own mind. Crows descend from nowhere, black miasma creeps closer like spilled ink. Your engines strain against water that seems thicker than it was an hour ago. You make it back, but the experience changes something. Daylight fishing feels safe now, tame. The real catches live in the deep dark where your mind plays tricks and the sea shows its teeth. Back at Blackstone Isle, the collector examines the key with satisfaction. His payment flows into you without ceremony. Haste, he calls it. Knowledge about pushing your engines beyond normal capacity. Settling into your bones like cold water. Every advantage is double-edged. Push too hard and they overheat. Strand you when something hungry circles in the dark. You try to maintain your normal routines after that. Dawn fishing, paying down debt, upgrading equipment incrementally. But the debt disappears, your gear improves past what basic fishing requires, and normal catches start feeling small. The rare fish, the ones that pay real money, don't bite in safe water during daylight hours. You could stick to the shallows, but the dredging equipment sits in your hold like expensive gilt, purpose-built for scraping things from depths where normal fishing gear fails, like owning a race car and using it to drive to Asda. The collector has 4 more relics on his list, and something about casting nets for dinner fish starts to feel like stalling. The first relic establishes the pattern. Dredge, deliver, receive power, pay the price. You leave Blackstone Isle with growing certainty that normal fishing was never really an option. Gale Cliffs is all jagged spires and narrow channels, wind screaming through stone passages. The collector's second relic awaits here. A music box, along with a territorial serpent that treats these waters like its private motorway system. The serpent slides through underwater tunnels, emerging without warning to investigate anything that moves. Your new haste ability becomes essential for outrunning something that could bite your boat in half. Navigation becomes timing and patience. Wait for the rumbling to fade, then gun your engines through passages barely wide enough for your hull. You find a hermit living in crumbling ruins, estranged from his brother in Ingfell over some fossilized family dispute. The hermit's family crest got lost when the serpent took it deeper into their cliffs. You become their unwilling mediator. Finding the crest means entering the serpent's lair. A cavern filled with maritime trophies, ship figureheads, anchors, pieces of boats that never made it out. The creatures collected them like a museum. You drift into a space that belongs to something that could crush your boat like an eggshell. Hook the brass crest while something subway train sized decides whether you're worth eating. That's when the serpent comes home. Water displacement, then a head larger than your entire vessel emerging like searchlights in cavern dark. You gun the engines, haste pushing your boat beyond safe limits through passages barely navigable at normal speed. Stone walls blur past while something that could swallow whales gives chase. The reconciliation plays out through you. Ferry messages arrange housing, small town diplomacy complicated by risking your life every conversation. The brothers' gratitude comes with military-grade explosives, charges powerful enough to blast through rock barriers that litter the entire map. You find the music box in the ruins of where you found his brother, red light pulsing beneath stone arches. When you dredge it up, the box is silent, broken, waterlogged for decades. Back at Blackstone Isle, the collector examines it with more care than he showed the key. He traces initials carved into the wood. J. You think, with something approaching reverence. More personal this time. Then something crawls into your head. Manifest. Knowledge about folding space, stepping through nothing to arrive somewhere else. The ability burrows into your nervous system like a parasite, settling behind your eyes, but each use pulls you further from normal space, makes you forget which location is real. 3 relics down, 3 to go. The serpent watches you leave, massive head tracking your movement, with the patience of something that knows you'll be back. Stellar Basin used to be paradise. Postcards and tropical waters where rich people forgot about winter. The abandoned resort sits on the beach like a broken promise. 5-star accommodations, but 0-star neighbors. During the day, coral reefs bloom in impossible colors. Bioluminescent creatures turn night fishing into a light show. Very romantic if you ignore the eldritch horror at the bottom. The Stellar Basin creature sits at the center like a living crater. Flower-shaped mouth surrounded by tentacles, and an enemy scaled up to geological proportions. Think of it as the world's least convenient neighbor. You meet the researcher at the Old Fort, driven from her lab by the creature's territorial nature. She's obsessed with molecular corruption, wants samples from fish exposed to whatever radiation it projects. At least she's got tenure. According to the scientist, the creature in the basin bears at least some responsibility for the aberrations plaguing the sea. Fish that lurk for too long seem to be affected on the molecular level, twisting and corrupting them until they're unrecognizable. Her sister haunts the margins of her work. She speaks about her as dead, but letters keep coming. Waterlogged notes about being scattered, about feeling whole again, about experiments that went too far. It's not too dissimilar to the notes that we keep finding, seemingly addressed to us. The Postal Service has really gone downhill. Building her repulsion device means recovering parts from her abandoned research station, sitting dangerously close to the creature. Tentacles the size of subway cars rise to examine your hull, test whether you're food or furniture. The repulsion device works as advertised once activated. Electromagnetic feedback that makes something city block sized recoil long enough for you to dredge around its lair. No pressure. Everyone here processes grief through proximity to the things that caused it. I'm sure that it's a healthy coping mechanism. The engagement ring waits at the center, where bioluminescence becomes liquid stars. The red light pulses in rhythm with the creature's movements. Nothing suspicious about that.
Foreshadowing is a
Back
literary
at
device in
3 relics down, 2 to go. Back at Blackstone Isle, the collector examines the ring with shaking hands. This time his satisfaction comes with relief. Progress at last. The third power burrows deeper. Banish. Knowledge about repelling horrors temporarily, settling into your spine like ice water. Customer service training for the supernatural. But banish only delays problems, never solves them. Drive away a night angler and it might come back angrier. Payment plans from hell. Twisted Strand is where aircraft go to die. The mangrove swamp spreads like a web of roots and regret, littered with biplane wreckage. Dog tags in the shallows tell stories about squadrons that flew into weather that shouldn't exist. The fog here is aggressive, wrapping around your boat like it's trying to muffle your engines. Mine seekers patrol these waters, jellyfish with too many tentacles, moving with purpose rather than current. They get inside your head, scramble your thoughts, making you question whether that rock you're steering towards is real or paranoia. The soldier has been here since his squadron went down. Only survivor, building artillery in a swamp where reality operates by different rules. His plan? Rebuild the mortar, eliminate the mineseekers, avenge his fellow aviators. Military thinking applied to supernatural jellyfish. Finding mortar pieces means dredging crash sites. Each wreck tells stories about pilots who thought they were flying through normal weather until the fog showed them otherwise. To progress here, we must do as the soldier requests. To bring him fish from the mangrove in order to make bait that can trick the mineseekers into trapping themselves. He then intends to use the mortar we helped assemble to kill the trapped seekers in order to extract some sort of vengeance for his fallen comrades. Baiting the traps, positioning your boat at safe distance, watching explosive shells arc through the fog, and watch them explode. Each hit proves that some problems can be solved with sufficient ordnance. The soldier's satisfaction is pure, using the right tool for the job, even when the job involves shelling interdimensional jellyfish. 3 eliminations later, the soldier declares victory, his squadron avenged, war finally over. He presents you with the necklace, emerald green, custom engraved, my shining star. He says that he found the jewelry in the mangrove and that it might be worth something. Back at Blackstone Isle, the collector examines the necklace with hands that have stopped shaking and started trembling. This is recognition. He traces the engraving with fingers that remember making the purchase, choosing words that meant something to someone who's no longer around to wear jewelry. The 4th power floods in. Atrophy. Knowledge about killing instantly every fish in the immediate area. Dragging corpses to the surface. It's an efficient harvesting means, but it completely decimates the population, as it corrupts everything it touches. Fish killed this way often rise as aberrations, twisted by unnatural death. The power teaches you to solve problems through annihilation. Treat the ocean as a resource to be strip-mined. 4 relics down, 1 to go. Each delivery brings the collector closer to something that might be closure or catastrophe. The old mayor camps at one of 4 random sites located around the edges of civilization. You find him south of the Marrows this time, hunched by a makeshift fire that casts shadows in directions that don't match the flame. When your boat approaches, he looks up with eyes that have been waiting for a very specific conversation. Did you throw it back? His voice carries decades of hope wrapped around a question that clearly means everything to him. You show confusion, ask what he's talking about. The response comes like a dam breaking. The book! You try to deflect, think he's mistaken you for someone else. But he's not having it. His focus sharpens with the intensity of recognition that goes deeper than faces. I'm not seeing things, it's really you, isn't it? You ask if he's okay, but he's already lost in the memory, staring into the flames that might be showing him scenes from decades past. The story pours out in fragments. Him and his damned wife dredging up an old book from the depths where old books shouldn't exist. Something cloaked in fog following it out of the deep, crashing through their boat like physics were optional. Boom! It spoke. It said it was coming for our breath, that we wouldn't be needing it soon. And then darkness crashed down. The aftermath. Survivors washing up shore while the man who caused it all still clutched the book like it was worth more than the lives it had already cost. The crew begging him to throw it back as fog rolled ashore for the first time in living memory. Everyone believing, hoping, that it could still be undone if someone would just make the right choice. The lighthouse keeper was there. She saw everything. You find her tending her beacon with the mechanical precision of someone who's been keeping the same vigil for years. When you ask about the Crimson and Silver book, her response cuts through pretense like lighthouse beam through fog. You're really asking me, after all this time? Her voice carries the wariness of someone who's been waiting for this conversation longer than she wanted to. The recognition in her eyes isn't surprise, it's confirmation of something she's always known would happen eventually. You know it must be returned. You have to move on. For her sake, as well as yours. Take control. Be rid of that thing once and for all. The way she says her makes it clear that this isn't abstract advice. She's talking about someone specific, someone whose name carries weight in these waters, someone whose fate has been tied to that book since the day it was dredged from the deep. Back to Blackstone Isle. But this time the conversation takes a different tone. You're not here to deliver another relic or receive another cursed power. You're here for answers, for the book, for control over a situation that's been controlling you since the day you washed up on Greater Marrow's beach with convenient memory problems. You shout at the collector, demand the book, but he keeps deflecting with the same calm certainty he's shown through every previous transaction. The book is yours, he says, has always been yours, will always be yours. But he won't hand it over, won't explain the contradiction, won't acknowledge that his logic makes no sense to anyone operating with a complete set of memories. So you try to take it by force. Your fist connects with his face, and that's when everything changes. The mirror shatters, literally shatters, and suddenly you're looking at yourself holding the book, fist raised against broken glass, while the collector stares back from the reflection like he's always been there. Pathetic, he says, and his voice is your voice speaking words you don't remember thinking. Understand this plainly before you sink us into despair. I know how to bring her back. It's all right there on the pages. And now you've seen its power firsthand. We possess the power to release her from her slumber. The book sits heavy in hands that apparently always held it. The collector speaks from broken glass like a conscience made visible, arguing for completion of a project that splits you in half to pursue. Two sides of the same guilt. One trying to forget, one trying to fix, both failing to accept that some losses can't be undone, no matter how much eldritch power you throw at the problem. You've been talking to yourself this whole time, delivering artifacts to yourself, learning cursed abilities from yourself, building towards a ritual designed by yourself to resurrect someone who's been dead long enough that the ocean floor is littered with pieces of the life you shared with her. The realization settles like cold water. You're not the fisherman who's been hired to help the collector. You are the collector. You're both. You're the man who dredged up the book, who refused to throw it back, who scattered Julie's belongings across the sea floor, and then spent decades gathering them again for a ritual that promises to bring back someone who probably doesn't want to be brought back wrong. The mirror lies in pieces, but the reflection keeps talking, keeps arguing for completion of plans you made when you were desperate enough to trust a book that followed fog out of the deep. Some conversations happen across decades, others happen across the space between guilt and denial, between the part of you that remembers and the part that's been trying very hard to forget. Time to decide which part wins. And finally, Devil's Spine is where civilizations go to learn humility. The volcanic archipelago rises from deep water in jagged peaks, all black stone and sulfur vents, dotted with ruins that suggest someone once thought they could build something permanent on islands that actively disagree with the concept of permanence. It's also where Dredge decides you've been having too much fun and need to be reminded that this is, fundamentally, a horror game designed by people who hate you personally. The difficulty comes from claustrophobia. Ruins creating a maze of tight channels that barely fit your boat. Navigation becomes threading needles while something building size decides whether you look edible. Piranhas swarm these waters to slow you down, latching on in clusters while the blind motherfish tracks your reduced movement. She's massive enough to make everything else look like minnows, using her children as eyes while positioning for attacks that feel personal. The volcanic environment gives you an out. Lure piranhas into hot streams where superheated water cooks them faster than they can retreat. The fanatic priest waits at his temple with the pocket watch, Julie's pocket watch. But first, the trials. Free shrines demanding proof of your fishing mastery. Catch specific fish, set crab pots near thermal vents, travel through piranha-invested channels. Normal fishing made deadly by environmental hazards and constant threat of becoming fish food. You complete the trials because you become very good at fishing under impossible circumstances. Because the abilities you've learned, haste, manifest, banish, and atrophy, turn deadly challenges into more manageable problems. By the time you reach Devil's Spine, you're desperate enough to use every ability you've learned. The powers feel like necessities for surviving an environment designed to kill anything that enters it. Because that's what you've been doing to yourself. training yourself to rely on eldritch power instead of just accepting loss, building dependency on cursed abilities because the alternative is admitting that some things can't be fixed, some people can't be saved, some grief has to be carried rather than cured. The ritual itself is straightforward. Place flames in statue holders. Watch the fanatic speak words that hurt to hear. Cold fire consumes him without burning. Voluntary departure rather than violent death. Maybe this was always his plan. The pocket watch remains on the altar, still ticking despite supernatural flame. Beautiful precision engineering with an inscription that reads, "For my beloved Julie, may our time together be eternal." The kind of sentiment that sounds romantic until you realize what eternal means to someone who's been dead for decades. You pick it up with hands that remember everything. The purchase, the engraving, the moment you gave it to Julie, the weight of it in her hands when she smiled and promised that time together would never run out. But time did run out, and now you're holding the watch again, feeling it tick against your palm, like a heartbeat from someone whose heart stopped beating long enough ago that the ocean has forgotten her name. Back at Blackstone Isle for the final time, the mirror stays broken. You stand holding the final piece of Julie's scattered life, talking to your own reflection like it's someone else. Because, in a way, it is. The part that split off when grief became too heavy to carry whole. The pocket watch keeps ticking, marking time towards a decision that will determine whether Julie comes back wrong or doesn't come back at all. 5 relics gathered through trials that pushed you to madness. 5 pieces of a broken life ready to be reassembled into something that might not recognize the love that motivated its resurrection. The watch ticks towards a choice between letting go and holding on so tight it destroys everything you're trying to save. The story begins with love. December 1926, a fisherman buys an expensive necklace, emeralds, custom engraved, for Julie, my shining star, for the woman he's planning to marry. Normal courtship in a normal world where the biggest problem is affording jewelry that properly expresses your feelings. March 1927, the proposal. A sparkly ring, a yes that changes everything. 2 people planning a future that assumes tomorrow will be like today, only better. June brings tragedy and opportunity in the same package. His mother dies, leaving them the estate on Blackstone Isle. Inheritance that feels like a burden until you realize that it's actually freedom. Their own island, their own castle, their own chance to build something permanent. The mother's will includes a gift for Julie, a pocket watch, antique silver, ticking with the weight of family history. Julie isn't fond of it. Inherited jewelry carries the emotional residue of previous owners, but takes it out of obligation. The kind of compromise young couples make when managing family politics around new relationships. August 20th, 1927. Fishing has been poor, money is tight. Optimism is strained by the reality of making a living from waters that don't always cooperate. The fisherman decides to perform a renaming ritual, calling his boat Julie instead of Ocean's Riches. He takes the ceremony seriously, following traditions that demand throwing out everything from the old boat to ensure a clean transition. But Julie keeps a keychain from the original name. A small rebellion, a minor sentiment, the kind of thing that shouldn't matter, but it does. The ritual is now incomplete. The next day, a rock appears from nowhere and damages the boat. Nothing significant, but it's noteworthy. It's the kind of omen that makes you wonder if you followed the old ways correctly. September 9th, the fisherman installs dredging equipment on his boat. And he keeps Julie away from fishing activities. Insists that she stays home while he explores new ways to harvest the sea. Equipment for pulling treasures from depths where normal fishing gear fails. The timing does feel suspicious in retrospect. Upgrading to salvage operations just before everything goes wrong. September 14th, 1927. The day everything changes. Julie is aboard when they dredge up the wooden casket. She watches her husband open it, sees the crimson book fall onto the deck, like it was waiting for exactly this moment. Watches his expression change as he stares down into the empty box, then turns to meet her eyes. In his eyes, I saw the void, she writes later. The kind of description that suggests more than metaphor, deeper change than simple greed or simple curiosity. Something fundamental shifted in the man that she loved, replaced by something that looked like him, but definitely operated by different rules. Julie falls ill the same day, a strange chill that fogs her brain, sickness that doesn't respond to normal remedies. The book's influence spreads beyond its immediate handler, affecting everyone in proximity to whatever came out of that casket. She's the first casualty of something that will eventually claim much more than one woman's health. The old mayor remembers what happened next. The ship sank on the spot, crew washing up on beaches while the man who caused it all kept the book in his possession. Everyone pleaded with him to throw it back, return whatever he'd taken from the depths to where it belonged. But he refused, clutched it like it was more valuable than the lives it had already destroyed. The fog rolled into Greater Marrow that same day. First time in living memory, bringing with it things that shouldn't exist. Night anglers that looked like boats when they got close enough to reveal teeth. Serpents in cliff passages, creatures in the deep basin. Mind-bending jellyfish in mangrove swamps. The book didn't just contain knowledge, it served as invitation for things that had been waiting for someone stupid enough to open the door. Her final notes arrive without dates, written in tone that wavers between lucid and corrupted. She writes about being scattered to the winds when he left, about feeling almost whole again now that he's returned, about the need to throw me back, words that could refer to the book or to herself, salvation or sacrifice, depending on how you read the desperation between the lines. The fisherman finds these notes and breaks completely. Realizes the Julie writing to him isn't the same woman who fell ill from proximity to the book. Understands that whatever he's been planning to resurrect might not be the person he lost, might not want to be brought back the way he's capable of bringing her back. So he uses the book to erase his own memory, tries to leave the past behind by forgetting it entirely, understanding that the Julie lost to the ocean isn't the same person anymore, and never will be. Sinks his boat with all the artifacts aboard, hoping to scatter them so widely that no one could ever gather them again. But the book doesn't let go easily. It creates the collector persona to ensure the ritual proceeds, regardless of the fisherman's change of heart. Splits him into two aspects, one that remembers nothing, one that remembers everything, and is willing to manipulate the forgetful half into completing plans made in desperation decades ago. The collector manifests on Blackstone Isle, in the mansion that was supposed to be their home, surrounded by wealth that was supposed to buy happiness, but only purchased the tools for dredging up things that should stay buried. He waits for the fisherman to wash up on Greater Marrow's beach, ready to begin the process of gathering the artifacts and rebuilding the ritual from scratch. This is what happens before the game begins. Love becoming obsession, loss becoming denial, grief becoming dangerous proximity to forces that don't care about human attachment. A man who refused to accept that some things can't be fixed, some people can't be saved, some losses have to be carried rather than cured. The story that starts with buying jewelry for someone you love ends with splitting yourself in half to manipulate yourself into resurrecting someone who probably doesn't want to be brought back wrong. The kind of tragedy that happens when you love someone so much you're willing to destroy everything else to get them back, including yourself. Two choices, one book. Decades of consequences balanced on the edge of a decision you've been building towards since the day you washed up on Greater Marrow's beach with convenient amnesia and a debt to work off. You deliver the pocket watch, complete the collection. You follow your own manipulation to its logical conclusion. The ritual takes place far from shore, in water so deep the bottom might as well be theoretical. The collector stands beside you now, not reflection in broken glass, but physical presence, the fragment of yourself that remembers the plan. You hold the book together, crimson pages open to words that were never meant to be spoken by anything with a survival instinct. You begin the incantation. To release a lost one, frozen in time. The pocket watch goes overboard first, sinking towards depths where time moves differently, and tethered by chains in the deep. The necklace follows, my shining star disappearing into darkness. Bind them to this world once more. The engagement ring carries broken promises into water that turns darker with each opening. Open the door to the starry heavens. You insert the key into the music box, but don't turn it, not yet, and lay the weary world to rest. The music box sinks with the key still unturned, towards depths where it will finally complete its melody. The world shakes. The music box begins to play from the depths. Julie's tune rising through water that shouldn't carry sound this far. The same melody she used to hum while cooking breakfast. Now soundtrack for the end of everything you once called normal. She rises from the water like a memory made flesh. Beautiful, perfect, floating above the waves with arms outstretched. For a moment, the ritual feels like victory. Love conquered death. But the music box keeps playing and something else is rising behind her. The entity emerges. Tentacles that stretch beyond the horizon, intelligence that predates human civilization, hunger that's been waiting geological epochs for payment. Julie floats before it like bait, like the beautiful face love-drunk fools see before making bargains they can't afford. The music box continues its gentle melody as the world ends. The entity spreads across the horizon like spilled ink. Your desperate resurrection becomes everyone else's apocalypse. The credits roll over devastation. Greater Marrow burns. The lighthouse falls dark. Fog rolls across the islands like a burial shroud. The music box plays through it all. Julie's melody transformed into a funeral dirge for a world that died because someone couldn't accept that some losses have to be permanent. But alternatively, you can return to the lighthouse keeper with the book burning like guilt in your hands. She's been waiting for this conversation since the day you brought the book up. Get rid of it, she says. I'll show you the way. The lighthouse beam swings across dark water, settling on coordinates far from shore. The spot where the book was first dredged up, where you made the choice that destroyed everything you cared about. You sail towards the light until you're floating above depths that might as well be theoretical. I said that already. The book sits heavy in hands that have carried it longer than you remember. Pages whispering promises about Julie, about resurrection, about love conquering death, but you throw it back. The book disappears into water that accepts it like a wound finally closing. The pages separate as it sinks, dissolving into component pieces that drift apart like scattered thoughts finally finding peace. The fog starts to clear, and that's when the Leviathan rises. Water displacement announces its arrival. Waves that shouldn't exist, currents suggesting something continent-sized, shifting below. Then the head emerges. Serpentine, elegant, carrying intelligence that predates human civilization. This isn't the tentacled horror from the bad ending. This is the guardian of boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. The force that keeps eldritch horrors contained, where they can't damage things that follow normal physics. It opens jaws large enough to swallow your boat, your guilt, your desperate love, and your refusal to accept that some losses can't be undone. You don't fight it. The Leviathan's mouth closes around you like the end of a sentence that should have been written decades ago. The world continues without you. Lights bloom across the night sky. The archipelago begins to heal from decades of eldritch contamination. You saved everyone by choosing to lose everything. The endings aren't really about Julie. She's been gone for decades, scattered to winds and tides that don't preserve human consciousness. The ritual brings back something that looks like her, but was never her. The choice is between acceptance and denial, between carrying grief that hurts, but doesn't hurt anyone else, or solving personal loss in ways that spread damage to everyone within range, between love that honors the dead by letting them rest, or love that disturbs the dead because the living can't handle being left behind. You spent decades manipulating yourself into gathering resurrection tools. Split your personality to overcome moral objections. Turned the entire archipelago into a hunting ground for artifacts that belonged to someone who threw herself into the sea rather than live with what you'd done. The right choice was always to throw the book back. You should have done it the day you dredged it up, when the crew begged you to return it. You should have done it when Julie fell ill, when the fog rolled in, when everything started going wrong. But love makes people stupid. Grief makes people dangerous. The game ends with a choice you should have made decades ago, assuming you can love Julie enough to let her stay dead. Dredge is a fishing game, the same way Jaws is a movie about shark biology. The mechanics work exactly as advertised. Cast nets, catch fish, sell them for money, upgrade your equipment, repeat until profitable. But the systems serve a story about something much darker than sustainable maritime commerce. The aberrations aren't random mutations, they're symptoms. evidence of contamination that spreads through water systems like infections through bloodstreams. Every twisted fish you haul up represents ecological damage caused by something that doesn't belong in rational waters. The fishmonger buys them without question because the community has been eating corrupted food so long they've forgotten what normal food tastes like. The economy rewards this. Aberrations sell for premium prices because they're rare, dangerous to catch, beautiful in ways that normal fish aren't. Your boat becomes a vector for spreading whatever influence created the aberrations in the first place. Every sale normalizes the presence of things that shouldn't exist. But the real dredging isn't about fish. The relics you gather aren't historical artifacts, they're personal belongings scattered across the ocean floor when everything went wrong. You're not collecting artifacts for a mysterious benefactor, you're gathering pieces of your own broken life, manipulated by your own split personality into reassembling tools for a ritual you designed when grief was stronger than wisdom. The collector persona exists because accepting Julie's death as permanent felt impossible, so you used the book to split yourself, creating a fragment that could remember the plan, while the other half forgot everything that made pursuing it unbearable. The most horrifying thing dredged from the ocean wasn't the aberrant fish, or the cursed relics, or even the entity waiting in the abyss. It was the fisherman himself, and the part of him that could never let go. Some catches are worth keeping. Others should be thrown back before they contaminate everything else in the hold. The trick is learning the difference before you've poisoned the entire ecosystem with things that were never meant to surface. The water always wins. The question is whether you'll pollute it on the way down. Okay, so, well, thank you all so much for watching. Honestly, it means the world that you say that here. Massive thank you to everyone for the response to the last video, the Darkest Dungeon video. Honestly, insane that it did so well. Massive thanks to Editor Man, Crimbles, who might be doing some of this, hopefully. So, you know, go show him support. You'll be linked down below. But as always, no sponsors of right now. Maybe there'll be one hastily shoved in. I don't know. But yes, I'd like to thank the channel members and the Patreons. That, of course, being Keofer, the Milkman, Flapjack, Camo Chameleon, Vested Voice, Copper Boltwire, Ideen Loss, Rasulki Ryler, Will Provine, Ellie Kitty, Aroxano, Vinicus Franco, A Brick Wall, Ash Crowing, Adrian Nerium, Crit Croc, My Horror Project, Proxy, Sign Up King 5000, and Icebet. Thank you all so much for the support, truly means the world. If you want your name read out here like them, then check the channel memberships or the Patreons, do whatever. As always, let me down below what you want, if there's anything you want me to cover. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.